Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner Podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host, joined by my blue collar badass. On this week's episode, Matt and I bullshit again, and we love this format, so we're going to keep it. If you don't like it, well, I don't know what to tell you. Let us know. I'd love to hear your feedback, comments. Matt and I go into a bunch of topics on, again, personal excellence, relationships, teamwork, how to deal with things that come up that maybe you're not well equipped for, but should be. So we dive into that and a whole bunch more and a few tidbits here for the end to give you some great momentum going into 2023. I can't believe it's 2023, but it is. So, all right, guys, Matt and Dylan, take it away. It's been busy, that's for sure.
Yeah, likewise. Good busy?
So I was on a call last night with a bunch of Arte guys, and the amount of over the last 2 years, I've put so much time into skills, which, we talk a bunch about that here, but is the amount that I've learned and the value of all the pieces getting put together has been more than I ever thought. Cause I compare it to where I want to go, not what other people are necessarily doing.
Yep.
And it's one of those, I was on this call last night and guys are doing well, man. And running some big companies, and I'm looking at all the base and foundation I've built over the last 2 years, and then the things that I'm getting ready to release, and it's just insane, man. But this is when you put that much effort into systems, processes, forms, web pages, functions, software, that you don't see any any movement for ever. Just like a building, right? Foundation and peer work is important, but it's well, what are you doing?
Right.
And you don't see anything. So it's good, and it's about to hit and be in fruition. So I'm super excited about all that stuff, man. Just the systems, and when you build them, you got to just tweak them. You don't have to recreate the wheel every time. So I don't know. It's good busy. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, I hear you, man. That's awesome. That's really cool. I'm glad to hear it. And that's kind of entrepreneur 101, right? Every good entrepreneur will tell you, you don't have to create something brand new necessarily. There's problems everywhere, and as long as you can figure out a unique way to solve that problem, whatever it may be, you can do really, really well. As long as you got, the guts and the risk tolerance and the mindset and the ability to go without sleep and stress levels through the roof and all that stuff. But aside from those, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, man. It's been I've hit a new stride here, I think, for I'm halfway through 75 hard. Not that that's ever really mattered, but the thing that I've and I hit on in that call last night was, we look at all these people in, you and I have been in the personal development game for a while, and you look up at all these guys and you're like, well, shit, they're doing that, but I don't want to copy them, right? I don't want to steal their stuff. I don't want to do that. And it's I came to the realization last night, and it's something I said somewhat offhand, but in a way that I hit me is, dude, I'm never going to be them. Right. I'm never going to be, Andy Frisella. I'm never going to be Ed Milet. I'm Dylan, and it's important to lean into that piece. And then I'm going to build my system. I'm going to emulate them, but I'm going to do it in my own way, for my own company, for my own category of stuff. And to the thing we talked about with podcasts, right? There's 300,000 active podcasts in the world out of 7 billion people, right? Yeah, there's a lot of you, but you're still unique, right? And you're still not everyone's doing it. And I think we get caught up in that of and to the thing that I said on the show that aired today is, there's, let's call it 5 million people in construction in the world, or let's just call it the US, 5 million people out of 320 million. not everyone does this stuff. And I think we forget that. And it's something that just, it's hit me and resonated with me pretty hard here as to like, whatever I do is going to always be unique to me, even though I emulate the people that came before me, right? I run their play, I do their stuff, but in my own way, right? Like I can run a sales call the same way as somebody else, but it's selling my own stuff. You know, I can design a building. Like we all have to meet code and standards. Like that's not cheating. It's not copyright. It's code, you know? Like, and so I think we sometimes get in our own way of that stuff to like, you know, well, why wouldn't I put code book details in my, you know, on my drawings? Or like that's the way it don't don't recreate the wheel, or, you know, in our line of work, you're gonna kill somebody. Like, don't do that, you know? And I think it just we forget that a lot of time that's got to be unique, it's got to be creative. It's like, no, man, just run the play. But we get stuck in this boring work, and that's all there is, man. It's just doing the same shit over and over, and you know, you run Iron Man.
Yeah. But you do it with your own flavor, right? It's like cooking from scratch, right? You can make a pick your meal, right? And I can make the same meal. We could be standing right next to each other with the same recipe, but it's going to be a little bit different by the time it's all done. And that's the beauty of life too, though, right? I mean, you know, it's not copying someone else. I mean, we should seek to be as successful as, you know, our mentors or as people we look up to. And it's not that we want to be them, right? Like, believe me, I have a lot of respect for Andy and Ed and a lot of people, but I don't want to be in Andy's shoes physically. That ain't me. That's, you know, but I want to get to a level where I can say, yeah, I've made it, and you know, here's the next level I'm going to now. But you know, I think it's important to note that it's not a bad thing to want to emulate the success of others, as long as you're not just blatantly trying to rip them off.
Yeah, I mean, there's a line in there, right? Like there's giving credit where credit's due. There's, you know, copying their process, right? Like seeing what they do and running that play, right? So like for most of your construction, right? Like Cyber Monday, really all of construction, Cyber Monday, Black Friday, we don't give two shits. We don't run deals, we don't give discounts, we're not giving gifts. And the thing when I look at those is because, you know, one of the things that we're really taught in Arte is like no discounts, right? And so because it just trains your customers badly. But when you look at like what First Form does and the things that they do for like their Cyber Monday deal was they give you a bunch of extra free shit, right? A bunch of gifts, a bunch of bonuses. And that's, I think, how we can think about it in construction. And we do it in different flavors. We don't call it, you know, in the direct marketing world and marketing world, it's like bonuses and gifts and all this other crap, right? We give you a building and you better be happy with it. If not, well, I know we're getting sued, so we'll see in court. But, you know, the whole goal is to be happy, like to give them a building that they're happy with, right? That's the goal that we all want, mainly to not end up in court and to be proud of something. So, in that, like, you know, what are the gifts that you can give? What are the other little bonuses, the other little creature comforts that you can give to somebody? And it doesn't have to be directly related to the thing that you're doing, right? In construction, it's, you know, maybe it's taking guys out to hunt club, maybe it's you know, your chicken guy, right? We've told that story before. Or it's, you know, Omaha steak gift cards. Like it's things like that that, you know, people would appreciate those types of gifts more than like, oh, we added, you know, they'll appreciate 10 square feet, but whoop-de-doo, right? Like it ain't in a million square foot building. What's 10? You know, nobody cares. Um, Other than it's, you know, some guy's closet or something. But, you know, like some executive. So I mean, it's to think of it in like those terms and the gifts that going above and beyond. Because like for most of us, you're like, other than if you're going out shopping and, you know, dealing with the whole Black Friday thing, or you sat on your computer for Cyber Monday, I didn't really. Well, I participated some of this beforehand in gift buying for others. Um, but like that's how I uh approached it is, who are the people that I want to give gifts for, and what are things that align with who they are and something they would enjoy that isn't necessarily related to what I do, but a thing that elevates my status in their eyes, right? When we talk about relationships and that type of stuff. I think that's something that gets lost maybe in this whole sales world, and we forget about the relationship.
Relationships are the most important thing we have. And if anybody has not figured that out yet, you're losing. You're behind the curve. You better speed it back up, because everything we do, whether it's construction, design, selling widgets, it doesn't matter. At the most basic level, the relationships we foster, grow, those we create, those we take care of, they're the most important things we have. And it'll never change. So you got to be always thinking about ways to do that, ways to boost those relationships, how to make it better for the other guy or the other person. What can you do that is unique, like you said, but is helpful or will make you stand out in the crowd. Send in unique gifts to people that you put some thought into, means a lot more than sending out a Yeti with your company logo on it, which I'm looking at about 100,000 of them right now, but that's for a different purpose. But it's just the human element of it, right? You gotta foster those relationships, and the more time you can spend trying to make it better for someone else, the better it is for you in the long run.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with sending a Yeti. I mean, who doesn't love a Yeti? But the thing is, like, put a Omaha steak gift card in there, or if the guy likes
Or a
wings,
note, a letter or something.
yeah, like note, letter, Hooters gift card, right? Like if he's that kind of guy, like Golf Galaxy, right? Like be specific to like who you're maybe it's a Cabela's guy, maybe it's I mean, take your pick, right? But that's the point, is like, or that they're gonna appreciate it and it'll be funny, even if they never use it or say anything about it, like they know, right? And that's the whole point, is you have that connection with those people to know like if they'd appreciate it.
So it's kind of funny that you brought this up. One of the notes I had jotted down is some issues we've been having in the construction company, and it's because of relationships. And I wanted to kind of touch on it today because I spent a large part of my day fuming ass mad. But B, it's good to talk about, and it's the lack of relationships. So to kind of give you a little bit of backstory, we have two different instances right now going on, two separate projects where we have very intense, great relationships with our clients, with all of our specialty contractors, with local officials. But there's a breakdown when it goes past that to the next level, to the third party consultant. So in case A, we have been under construction for literally a year, 12 months, almost to the day, on a project. We've gotten obviously all of our approvals, everything's permitted, we're moving. The local, and I got to be careful how deep in the details I go, but let's say one of the local authorities, they happen to drive really expensive trucks that pump water. They approved this from their perspective a long time ago. Now they have a third-party consultant that looks at a very niche aspect of the project, and that's the fire alarm. Okay. The fire alarm reviewer still hasn't approved it 12 months into construction. Now we've reached the point where last week, this is threatening to stop production, right? We can't put drywall on the ceilings and the walls because we can't get a final electrical above ceiling inspection because this shit's not approved. And it's absurd. But what's happening now is it's this twisting kind of nail in the bike tire that there's only so much I can do, right? I have so we don't hire this guy. We don't have any contractual obligations to or from this guy. I have a very good working relationship with the top dogs, with the fire marshal, the local fire department. I mean, based on a lot of things we do. But even that only goes so far. So I can call and talk to them and say, hey, what's the holdup? What's going on? Here's why. And I've done this, you know, you explain to them, like, here's what this is affecting now in real life. Like, this is actually now slowing us down. It's actually costing me money, yada, yada, yada. And they're great, you know, on their end. But even to that point, like, there's only so much they can do. So there's no relationship between me and the third party guy. There's no direct conduit that he would give a shit about. I could call him and I would end up probably saying something stupid and it would just end poorly. But at the end of the day, there's no relationship there. There's nothing that's ever been started, grown, and frankly, there probably never will be. But it just kind of goes to show, like, in this weird instance, like, he's just a complete outsider. Doesn't give a shit about me or the project or my client or our vision or any of that. That's not what he's there for. He's there for a specific purpose, but he's also causing now this disturbance in my ecosystem. So it just kind of, I think, speaks to the flip side of that, how important it is to really foster those relationships with everyone you can, because you never know, you never know when you need it or when they need it. Right. And it's just, there's another instance going on now with the same sort of scenario. It's not worth even giving the story on that one, but it's the exact same thing. Like, it's a third party. It's one phase removed from my web of influence. And it's when you get outside of that web that it gets very difficult, especially in my world in construction, to affect any real change.
Man, it's a tough place to be, because more than likely you can't go to another guy, right? Like, to get reviews or approvals. More than likely, that guy, you are not the only project on their desk.
Right. Right.
And this is where, like, I don't know who I was talking to, but I was talking to somebody about, like, design and like how much time it actually takes, right, to, like, get drawings and stuff put together. And they were like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't realize shit took like that long. And so, and not, this is not on, I get the pickle that you're in, and there's really no good way to do it. It's whenever that guy gets to it, it's, you can't move it because, again, you don't have a relationship. You can't move it to the top of the pile or move it out because, somebody else probably has more influence over that process or that guy, or he's just doing it in the order that they came in, and he's so far behind in all the projects and all the construction that's happening that, I mean, this is what happens, and you probably can't, because, dude, fire alarm especially, like, there are not a lot of people that are NICET, level whatever certified to stamp those drawings. So, like, that's a whole other, you think electrical engineers are rare. Those guys are, they ain't a dime a dozen,
Right. Oh, and they know it.
Yeah. Well, it's just, well, I mean, fire alarm is one of those things, like, that is one of those inventions that does save a lot of lives, and they take that seriously, but at the same time, like, you never know how many projects that guy has on his desk, never know how good or bad of a worker that guy is. It's just a black box and shit magically appears. And that's how people feel most of the time about design too, is like, it's just a black box that shit magically appears out of, and you don't understand that it took thousands of hours per discipline to, like, produce. And there's no good answer for that, unfortunately. Like, but it's exactly what you hit on, right? The more influence you have and more spheres and doing right by everybody, big, small, because you never know where somebody's going to end up, right? You never know. The small guy today can be the big guy tomorrow, and he'll never do business with you because you were a dick at one point in, a bad moment. And that's just important to remember too, is, all through that. And I mean, it's scenarios like this, you're just like, shit, man, I wish I was friends with this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it would have been done a long time ago, right? And you never would have had the problem because it would have never come up, and the guy would have handled it. He would have saw, oh, this is a Schaefer job. Cool. I'll knock this out. Right. Or as it comes in, and things like that, right? To get through. And it's, you get in these binds that there's, like, nothing you can do, and you can be mad, and it sucks. And it's like you just keep working the problem as to where, like, who do we know? How do I get in charge? Can we hire anybody else? Is there something else? What does this guy need? Fuck, does he need his dry cleaning taken out? Like, what what can we do to help? But like, I mean, that's a weird and outlandish example, but if I give that guy an extra hour to review my project, well, shit, it's worth it, right? Um, and things like that. So yeah, it just, that sucks.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, we're getting through it. It also, it brings up another issue. And frankly, this is with my team internally. And it's real easy to have a tendency to lose what we call aggressive impatience in our company, right? We have it on our vision traction organizer that we lack a very good push to always be aggressively impatient. And people get real scared when I start throwing that term around the first time they hear it, because they think, I'm asking them to be an asshole, or I'm asking them to do something outside of our core values or their character. And it's not that at all. But when anything comes up, it kind of goes along with our 100 to 0 mentality, right? When anything comes up, we have to attack problems fast, and we need to throw the first punch, figuratively, and we have to be impatient in the fact that the problem's not done until it's solved. It won't go away by putting our damn head in the sand and playing ostrich, right? You have to jump at it. You have to go fast and furious and get these things handled. And candidly, we didn't do that. We collectively let it sit for a week longer than it should have. And it's like cancer, right? If you let the shit sit, it'll fester and it'll get worse and it spreads. And today it's this little weird thing that we're dealing with is a third party guy. What is it tomorrow or next month? And if we don't stay disciplined, stay true to our core, and stay aggressively impatient, we're going to die on the vine. And in this industry, in construction, it is fast and furious 100% of the time, foot on the gas. And if you take a second too long to look in the rearview mirror, you're going to get smoked. You're going to get passed by the next guy, and then you're playing catch up. And that's not a place anybody wants to be. So in a way, it's a good experience, because I think it provides a teachable moment for me, and some learning opportunities for my immediate team. But it's also, it kind of hits you in the gut when you're thinking, all right, everything's cruising. We're going along at Mach 1, everyone's moving and rowing in the same direction. And then it's like, you uncover one of these little turds in the punch bowl that you didn't know were there. It's like, what in the actual fuck just happened? We just came to a screeching halt, and now we got to start over real fast.
When so I heard this from another guy too, when I was describing, like, so there's like really one big regret that I have, and that's not finishing one of my 100-mile races. The first one. The second one, I was just not prepared for. It kicked my ass for sure. So I don't really regret that. But the one where, like, there's a dude that was falling asleep in the middle of the night after I've been running for 16 hours and 60 miles in, like, dude was falling asleep, and it freaked me out. But I was mentally, like, I was physically good. I was mentally like, what is this? And if I could have, like, shaken that, then I would have been able to finish. Like, I know I had the rest of it in me. And then the next race was just like, it was so brutal. Like, I was not ready for the elevation climb of that race. Everything else about it was fine, but like, it was just, I was not physically prepared to take that on. And then the night and cold, and it was in Tahoe, and I was afraid of a bear eating me in the middle of the night, which is like a real concern.
Valid concern.
So like, that one, isn't a regret. But as I was telling this story, and all the other races and stuff that I've done, to this guy, one of our other Arte buddies, was just like, dude, but that's the thing, right? Like, as you achieve more and more and more, like, your bar is set, like your reset value is so high that, like, yeah, to me, like, I can pretty much get out of bed and run a marathon. Like, it might suck, but I can do it. And but I've done enough of them that I'm mentally ready for it, even though I'll, like, physically hurt. So like I'm ready for that. And I can probably run a 50K, 50 miler. I'll have to train for, but like I can do a lot of this stuff. Like I know it'll hurt, but I can do it. And for a lot of us, we have these bars where we can do a lot of things pretty easily. And then some things we got to like build up to or train for, but like we know what we're in for when we do it. And so a lot of these like holes that we uncover they're annoying because we've done so much work in so many areas that the one little hole, like right, my regret of a 100 miler, which I'll do in 23, I got cajoled into it the other night. So like, but in that is when those divots come up, those holes in the bucket appear, you're so out of sorts because they don't happen. And when they do, you're like, you know, you get thrown for a loop on all this stuff because your expectation level and your standard is so high. But this is what happens when we set high standards, is that any divot, any problem, anything that is wrong is not acceptable. And so we overreact to like those quote minor things. And we make a major because it is a problem for like how the organization works. And then like kind of in that same vein, and one of the things that I live by is it's okay to have problems. It's okay to like see them so long as we fix it forever. Not we don't fix it for this project. We don't fix it for today. We fix it forever. And we solve the problem to never appear again, right? What systems, what processes, how do we do this? I'm not mad at anybody for doing it, like, but just how do we fix it forever? And this is how like I dealt with all of our Revit content. This is how I dealt with specs. This is how I dealt with design standards. This is why I built software. Like, how do we fix this thing forever and never have to worry about it? So like those two things of like high standards and your bar goes up over time, and then fixing it forever are like, I think, pretty complementary, you know, thought processes.
They totally are. And I'm laughing because it's like you can see my notes, man. So I literally today had a conversation with a teammate about just that, right? About, and it didn't even stem from the other conversation. It was standalone. We've been, for the last few months, we have been focusing super intently on finally systematizing things and getting processes written and pushing that through to our team that we're going to organize this, we're going to set standards, and then we're going to operate by those standards, and there will be no deviation. And you know, you push. It's a learning curve for people who haven't ever had to do this, right? I mean, candidly, we've operated pretty loosely for the last few years that I've been there, and then part of it was by necessity, part of it was the way we've always done it, you know, that sort of attitude. And as we're growing, we're crossing some pretty significant hurdles, right? So we're making some milestone leaps that I know at least, that if we don't put these in place now and get the shit fixed forever, we won't be able to sustain the growth that we're projecting. And I'm not one to accept that. So we've been pushing, but you know, you push people so hard to do this stuff and they don't want to do it at first because probably they don't really understand why or what the benefit is. But I likened it to like yelling at my kids to clean their bedrooms, right? My youngest especially I love him. God bless him, but he is just a pack rat. Like, he steals shit like from around the house. He's got like just mountains of crap everywhere. And my wife will go and clean his room for him, which I'm 100% against, right? It goes against every grain in my body, but she gets to the point where she can't take it anymore. She can't even walk through there. So she'll clean it all and spend a friggin' day in there cleaning. And then like the next weekend, she's just like, what happened? It looks like a bomb went off in here, dude. So it's kind of like when I go in, when I finally reach that point of I'm sick of hearing my wife complain about it, I'm sick of seeing her clean his damn room, I'll go in and lay the hammer down, right? And I, you know, figuratively, I'll get loud. I'm a pretty menacing dude when I want to be. And little dude will start cleaning like it's his job, right? And he's cleaning, he's dusting, he's putting shit away. But then the second I turn around and walk out to go downstairs or leave, thump, it's done. And it's kind of like forcing systems and processes into place in an operating organization. But I don't tend to get menacing and mean at my company very often. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have one. But B, it's a long game effort. It's kind of like you running your crazy ass long races that most normal humans, frankly, can't even fathom, getting upset for not finishing a 100-miler. I could jump out of bed tomorrow and run a 5K, and I'd probably be coughing for the rest of the week. But to your point, right? Like, you set your standards where you need them to be personally and for your organization, and then you got to put all the work into place so that you don't miss the next one, right? You just called it on air, live as we can be. You're gonna run a 100-miler and finish it in 2023. And knowing you as I do, there's no way in hell that doesn't happen now, right? And it's the same kind of mentality with pushing the construction company and pushing to get these processes and systems in place so that we can make it to that next milestone, because we have huge targets, huge vision, huge goals, and there's only one way to get there, and that's by everybody rowing in the right direction and fixing the holes in the boat. And you just got to keep drilling that in and until it just becomes second nature. And we go through phases where it's like watching my kid clean his room and everything's pushing and everything's going great, and then all of a sudden something springs up and it's like, well, what the hell happened? I thought we were all on the same page, and now we got to kind of backtrack a little bit and redo some things. And it's not the end of the world by any means, but it's growing pains, right? But it's there for a reason. And I'm trying to get everyone to understand, like, this is for a positive, productive result. There's a temporary pain, right? Like running your race for however long it takes you to run that ungodly distance. There's temporary pain, but there's a reward at the end that is friggin' great and that you want to get to. And that's, and I've been rambling, but that was the first thing on my notes, is watching my kid clean his room and then turn around.
Like a lot of things, man, it's not only inspect what you expect, but when it comes to systems and processes and really any of this stuff. So like, I'm going to liken this to sales because it's probably the easiest analogy, but it takes a person 9 times to see your brand to even inquire about it, right? Like, it takes 9 different occurrences for somebody to see, hear about you, your brand, your company before they'll even look at it. And repetition is kind of the point of a lot of this, the boring work, the repetition, getting tired of hearing yourself talk. All those things are a big part of instilling and embedding not only core values, but systems and processes. And the other thing too that I've really taken to in a lot of the things that I do is I back it up. I'll tell a story about whatever I do it here on the podcast about whatever point I want to get across, and then tell you the point and then reiterate the point later so that it drives it home. And I think a lot of us can get better at our stories, like in driving those points home of like why we're doing this, to give pointed examples and not like the most recent painful thing, but like, 2 years ago, give examples of like even theoretical stories that are probable to happen, not the one-off like that you only deal with. It only happened one time, once in a blue moon, or frankly hasn't never happened and most likely never will. Right? You can't get stuck in those, but give specific examples because people need concrete things to lean on. Like, I was talking to a contractor friend, and his uh he was basically new to commercial, and in that, like, he'd been a foreman and then was running his own company, and he got a project that was bigger than he'd ever had before as a subcontractor. It's like $1 million project, and then, or $1 million fee for them, so pretty big project in general. And they got a schooling on how to send and document emails, right? That's something that, if you're in the industry, you understand. But there's a purpose behind that. And we all know the stories of why you document stuff, why you do it this way, how to name and number emails, where they get stored, where they get filed, how to file them, how to issue RFIs, do say this, don't say that, right? We all understand those things because we've either experienced a really bad scenario or been told about a really bad scenario. And this is how we write, RFIs and respond to things because, you don't want that to come back later and you look like an idiot. So all those stories have been told, and this is why we do certain things, but it's important to like lay down that story and to maybe not always tell the same one, but to tell a similar story so that because we've all known the guy that like has told the same story 4 times to us directly in a one-on-one conversation. And you're like, dude, you have told me that exact story like 3 times. I can tell you the punchline for this story. So let's just save us both right now. Right. They forget, but that's the point is that you need that repetition in there. And then when you do some of these systems, like you got to build some of this stuff in silence, as painful as that is. And like for you to know that those systems are going to come in place. And then you need to do that wholesale change of like, this is the way we do it now. Cause frankly, like to do some stuff midstream in basically any organization is like nigh impossible to do because like they'll do it partially this way and then partially that way, and then you do it midway on a project and it screws the whole thing up. Like in construction is one of the hardest because you have such long timelines between projects and you want to do the new process on the new project and then see if it works. And then if it works, great. Then you're going to do it for every project that's new after that. But you're always going to have like 2 that never get changed over because they're like 2-year projects or projects that just won't die. Even though you'd wish they would, that horse just never seems to give it up. So like there's always going to be those things, and you have to understand that that's siloed, that's to one guy, that's one project, and like it is what it is in some of those instances. And you isolate those people to not work on anything else so that like they don't screw it up for everybody else. But like those are the things that we have to work through in construction, and understanding like those phases and changeovers and giving it to the guy or gal that is able to change and to like find the holes, not be mad at shit, easily take everything in stride. And again, it's a learning process. Like, um, you're not going to get this right the first time, but to understand that like that's how some of this stuff works is you need to sort it through in silence, right? Without anybody knowing, without anybody giving bad criticism, without your, Eeyore in the bunch to shit on it, which you should get them out of the group anyway. But like that's the way that this needs to go so that you can make those changes and have the positive impact that you want in the company, but also know that like, hey man, like I might get this shit wrong. Like you got to tell me though, like why this doesn't work, and be like trusted people within your organization. And you should trust everybody, but some you obviously trust more than others. Like let's be clear on that. There's some guys that just suck, but some guys are like, they're willing to change, right? They're all good. They should be in your organization, but some are just like more receptive and you're guinea pigs for whatever you're trying to do.
Well, and change is hard for people. It's hard for everybody. Some are better at it than others. But I guess what you're saying, what I'm hearing, it takes a lot of perseverance, right? You got to be willing to run the long race and to keep pushing and keep going, because there is going to be so many roadblocks and so many, hurdles and pitfalls and all these things that are standing in the way of you getting to where you want to go, whether it's you as yourself or you as your company or whatever. You gotta just be in it for the long haul, and you can't sweat all the small things. Because if I had days like I did today, every day or even often, like my blood pressure would be so high, I wouldn't be able to sit down and even have a conversation with you. Right. So you got to be able to get past that shit, take a deep breath, reevaluate, replan, stick to your guns though, too. Cause that the roots of this issue, or the roots of the boat that you're rowing, like, this is the way to do it. And you talked about, I can't remember the term you used. It was brilliant. Like, you got to trust in yourself was basically the gist of it, but you had a better term. but you got to fall back on that. And you got to have that faith in yourself at some point that you know what's best for this situation. And no matter how hard it is, no matter what anybody throws at you, you got to keep pushing forward. I could insert a really good analogy about perhaps the world's absolute best college football team, the University of Michigan Wolverines. But it would fit really well right here. And Jimmy Harbaugh kind of did that, right? The world wanted to murder that dude. And I'm not on the Harbaugh train. I don't think he's the Messiah. I never have. But the college football world wanted to murder that dude. And he stuck to his guns, man. And he just kept grinding and grinding and grinding and grinding. And now, I don't even have to say it. Everybody knows it. It's good to see, but it's also good to use that to remind myself, at least, that, you know, there is a light at the end of this tunnel before we start the next one. And you just got to keep churning, man, and keep grinding forward. And, you know, eventually you'll get your touchdown. Eventually you'll get to the end. And then you have a few minutes to breathe before you got to do it all over again.
Yeah, I mean, let's take that example. So it took him 7 years to finally beat the team down south at home, and then, you know, it took Michigan 23 years to beat them, you know, in the horseshoe. So like two kudos. One, kudos to the Michigan AD for not firing his ass like 4 years ago, and then for never winning the 2 games that actually matter to Michigan fans. And then, you know, for now having an undefeated season, right? Like that's what it takes. And it's not that it took him that long to build the program. It's he needed to get dialed into back to college football, to recruiting, to all the stuff, to running the plays, to understanding who he is, you know, like and on the other side, you know, with Ohio State and their new coach that had some very big shoes to fill in Urban Meyer, you know, it took him, he did really great out the gate. And now, you know, he's not doing, granted, like Ohio State still had a great record. They just didn't win the game that mattered this year. Everybody knows it, but like that's the difference, right? Like he, you know, 3 years ago he won it, didn't win it last year, didn't win it this year. But again, overall, they had a great record. They've done well as a team, and, you know, but that's kind of the point too, right? There's some games that matter, some games that don't. And it's how you show up to the ones that really do, that define you, right? Michigan could lose every single game of the year, so long as they beat Ohio State and Michigan State. Everybody would be, well, they wouldn't be happy, but they would be happy.
It wouldn't be a lost season, that's for sure.
Yeah, you wouldn't fire your coach over that, but you would, you know, like you could win every other game except for those 2, and, you know, everybody's pissed, right? So there's things like that, to where, you know, nobody cares if you lose to Penn State. Nobody cares if you lose to Northwestern, Nebraska, even though that might be embarrassing. Like, it's not like, but losing to Ohio State is, you know, the worst. So that's the issue.
And it's, you know, football's all in good fun. I don't get nearly as riled up as I used to about it. Me and our buddy James, who's been on the show before, he's an unfortunate Ohio transplant. We were talking shit, you know, all week back and forth about the upcoming game. And, you know, it's fun poking jabs, and like he got in a few good last minute, you know, hey, remember Appalachian State, dickhead. but just to know and trust your roots and know what you're doing is the right thing, and know that you're on the winning team, even if it may not look like it at that very moment. That's a pretty powerful boost of personal confidence and boost of endurance, I think.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's sticking to your guns, there's knowing you're doing the right thing. There's I mean, for me, like, this Thanksgiving was pretty trying in a lot of ways, but the thing through a lot of this is knowing that, but knowing who and who you can't, like, poke those jabs at, right? Like, you know that, like, if they're a good friend, like, you can say, you can stir the pot, you know, and they're gonna have a laugh at it, and they'll be like, you know, all right, that's, you know, fair enough. But it's and they get it, right? It's all in good fun. It's not like being mean. Even like, but somebody else could take it that way, right? But to the right people, and this is the whole point about relationships too, right? You can crack a joke that to some people might take it offensively. Either way, it's probably funny. And then other people are just like, they'll take offense, but in the right way, and it's just like the Ohio State, Michigan thing, because I have no dog in that fight other than my wife is Michigan grad and her grandpa is a Ohio State grad. So they've got some civil war, and then her father-in-law is a Michigan State guy, which they suck. So that's fine now. And then the only win that I have is in basketball, being a Louisville guy, where we just kick everyone's ass and actually win championships. So
You just get it
again, like,
done.
yeah, but like I'm not on the field, right? Like and that's the other thing too that I think people get wrapped up in is like they're not actually on the field, right? It's like there's 50 people on that team actually making calls. There's 100 people on the field and 100,000 in the stands, like I'm not playing, in basketball, there's 11 guys, like there's 25 of them, with coaches and shit, like, and if 40,000 in the stands or 20,000, whatever basketball arena holds. So like, we got to keep that in context too. Like most of us, I have no impact on that game, whether I rub my breeds the right way or hold my beer the right way or do or don't drink. Like it doesn't matter, right? Like it's the guys on the field that actually have a say in the matter. We don't. So let's control our own games and the things that we actually have an impact on, versus armchair quarterback in something that you couldn't throw a football 40 yards to save your life. And okay, so what? The guy was off by 6 inches. Like you couldn't throw it within a foot. Like let's be real.
For sure, man. We're not on those teams, but we all have our own teams, and I think that's the focus of what we've been riffing about today. Is you gotta be in your own team. You gotta push for your own team so you can win with your own team.
That's just it, man. Like your game, right? Like I keep coming back to this because I think it's so understated that there are so few of us doing what we do. That we want to compare ourselves to the next guy. And even one of the other guys that I was talking to this week was, like in different markets, right? His market's super competitive. And the way that they do stuff and bid stuff, like he's like, man, if I talked to these other guys in these other markets and, they're all like second, third tier markets, right? They're not New York, Chicago. But like you go to these second, third tier, places like a South Bend, Indiana, or Fort Wayne, or Ann Arbor, right? Like those are second, third tier markets. Like in some of those, they're competitive, right? Like in Indy, it might be competitive, and Nashville's competitive. But you go to like again a South Bend or a Fort Wayne where there's plenty of work, but it's not like cutthroat. Where you take somebody that's doing really well in a cutthroat environment and then goes to another environment that is doing the same thing, right, in construction, but just not as dialed in on all their systems and processes, you would dominate those other people just by the nature of how you had to compete in these other areas. So I think it's so important to like, not only, especially for most everybody in construction, like you guys don't compete, like, design firms, we kind of do, but not most of us are still pretty regional. Um, for things like we should talk to other firms that are also regional because you're not going to lose anything. But for the most part, like we have the ability to collaborate and have all this good knowledge and information passed to us without being in a competitive zone, right? Like we do a call with a bunch of guys and it's not competitive, granted, mostly not in the same industry, but there's two guys on the call that are in the exact same business doing the exact same thing, just in different markets, and they learn so much from each other. And things like that, guys, are super powerful to dialing in your own systems, your own processes, seeing how other people do it, and again to create your own version of it. But you don't have to recreate the wheel.
Couldn't have said it better, man. I mean, that's the key. You just gotta you can all push in the same direction. We can all help each other. It is competitive in a lot of ways, but to your point, you can always find people that can be in your in your corner, right? In your, who know the struggles you're going through in your industry, you can always find somebody who's able to help out, lend an ear, whatever it is. You just got to make the effort and keep on marching.
That's it. All right, guys. That's going to be this episode of the Construction Quarter podcast. But we do ask you to share the show if you got some value out of it. Matt and I love this format. I think we get a lot more kind of maybe raw content, a lot of good information for you guys, and frankly, just some stuff that's on the top of our minds. And hopefully, it helps you in your business and everything that you're going through. And one last tidbit that I shared on last week's show, but it's worth sharing again, is this next 4 weeks, right? This will come out in December, but from now till the end of the year is when everybody gains their weight for the entire year, right? So if you gain 15 pounds in a year, it is all done in the next 4 weeks between now and New Year's. So don't be lazy. Get outside, get some exercise. You'll be happy about it, and it'll give you some momentum going in the first of the year. For that gym membership that if you don't already have, you should go get now, instead of being one of those schmucks that comes in on the 2nd of January and only uses it for a month. So again, guys, start setting your goals now. That is one of my big focuses here through the end of the year. Sharing them with people. I just shared one of my big ones is to do 100 miles. It's a personal goal for next year. But start setting your goals for personally, for your family, your business, faith, whatever it is that you need to work on, fitness, whatever that is, to set them here for next year. Do it now, and then share them with a friend, somebody to help keep you accountable to those goals, and set some milestones to achieve them as well. So if you like this show, go ahead and share it. Matt, any other parting words?
Share the damn show. That's
All right,
it.
guys. We'll see you next time.